Welcome to the Rural Social Worker Closing the Gaps Despite the Distance podcast. I am your host, Andrea Charles, and this is the space where we will delve into the heart of rural landscapes and explore the essential role of social workers in bridging the gaps in rural social work. Join me as we navigate the unique challenges, celebrate the triumphs, and uncover the stories that shape the fabric of rural life. Together, let's embark on a journey to understand the transformative impact of social workers in the forgotten communities of our nation. A quick note, while our discussions provide valuable insight, please remember that this podcast is not a substitute for official supervision or guidance in your professional practice. Well, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about burnout, and Ashley does trainings on this.
Yeah.
So burnout's something I don't think is talked about enough in our field at all. We don't really know we're burnout till we're burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And usually then people are done with their career and they change directions completely. So tell me all the things about burnout.
Yeah. So the first thing I think is most important, I may make some folks mad because I say things like, your scented candle and yoga are great, but they are not curing your burnout. So fair warning, if that triggers you, it's true. And so my doctoral research was on burnout, specifically in government employees. But one of the things that I talk the most about is that it is not just us, which hopefully validates and normalizes your experience. But taxi drivers, pilots, construction workers, any career field that you can think about suffers from burnout or has a potential to suffer from burnout. So first, of course, what is burnout? It is an organizational, occupational syndrome. Can you be burnt out as a mom? Absolutely. Can you be burnt out with your partner? Sure. It's just not really called burnout. What we're talking about is a very specific syndrome at work. It is not a diagnosis. You won't find it in the DSM, no matter how hard you look. It is not in the ICD. It is not globally.
It should be,
it is
I
not.
think.
Maybe so.
You know?
It just isn't like, I think people talk about it as if it's a like diagnosis, and it just isn't. But what that does is it introduces a lot of things that aren't true and a few things that are true but are not as emphasized. So we have three main components that make up burnout. And this is Christina Maslach is the just OG of burnout. She's been studying it since the 70s. She still speaks on it. She is amazing. So these three components are, one, emotional exhaustion. So emotional exhaustion is this feeling of just drained, fatigued, depleted in the emotional realm. I just have nothing to give you today. The second is what we call depersonalization. And that is, I am cynical, I'm detached, maybe callous in my attitude towards my work and the people involved. Maybe I start talking crap about my colleagues. Maybe I start talking crap about my clients. I just have no emotional kind of connection to being nice or kind about what I'm doing here. The third is our reduced personal achievement. So this is that inefficacy, the nothing I do matters. I'm not changing my clients' lives. I'm not feeling competent or that I'm making a difference or that I matter. And those three things combined, they all sound pretty bad in and of themselves. And it's not like you have to have all three in order to be burned out, but it is that kind of a vibe. Like, this person is bitter, probably hateful. No one really wants to hang out with them. Or when we do, we're all just complaining nonstop. And nothing that we do matters here anyway, so why do we even come to work? Maybe I start calling in. All of that is kind of classic burnout. And I think it's really important to talk about, and I'm not just going to talk at you for any amount of time, but there's some really key differences that I want to point out between just stress and burnout. So stress is short term, hopefully, unless it's chronic stress, and then it's a little different, but it's episodic. It's there's a physical reaction to pressure, demands. I'm feeling kind of jumpy and I got to do a lot in a little bit of time. There's some hyperactivity and some urgency associated with stress, and it can be managed with your lovely scented candle and your yoga and all of those kinds of time off. That will work for stress. for kind of the short, sweet, episodic stress. I had a hard week. I had a hard day. Maybe even I
Right.
had a hard month. Productivity in stress remains stable, although it does still feel bad. Like stress isn't always fun, but you're not seeing a decline in the productivity. And that is a huge difference with burnout.
Do
It's
you see an
chronic.
increase at all with stress productivity? If people are under stress, does their productivity actually go
Yeah.
up? Okay.
Yeah, it can. So there is and this is just funny because I just love words so much, but stress actually there's three kind of what is that movie? 10 Things I Hate About You. If
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
remember, they're walking around and she goes, "I know you can be overwhelmed and you can be underwhelmed, but can you ever
But can
just
you
be
just be
whelmed?"
well?
And the answer is no. But in stress, there is actually a good and a bad stress. So
Hmm.
bad stress we call distress, and good stress we call eustress, EU stress.
Hmm.
So eustress is actually that motivation that I have a deadline coming. I have something I'm looking forward to. I need to get this done by this in order to do this other thing. Rewards work great with eustress.
Vacation.
Yes, yes, I do this. I get to leave this place
Hmm.
and go to the Bahamas. Absolutely. And we don't really talk about eustress. Most times when people are talking about stress, they're actually talking about distress. I am struggling, things are bad. And I
Hmm.
think that's a cultural and societal thing, is because most of our stress that we conceptualize is bad. Like we don't talk about it when it's good, when it's motivating, when it's like healthy.
Hmm.
We talk about it when it's kind of taken this dark turn. Yeah.
Which
So
is not, we should normalize that probably a lot more.
totally, totally. It's with my clients I say about anxiety, right? If you had zero anxiety, you would die because you wouldn't look both ways before you cross the street and a bus would
Yeah.
careen into you and you would
You
die.
serve the
Like
purpose.
some anxiety is good, some stress is good. If we didn't have
Mhm.
any of that, we would not be motivated to get out of bed.
Well, and I don't know that we would appreciate the when we're not stressed either, right? When that stress is gone, not appreciating that peace, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So stress can be good, can be bad. Chronic stress we know is bad, but burnout is a little bit different. And burnout is this like prolonged stress can lead to burnout. That's actually, kind of the predecessor to burnout. So when we talk about burnout, the disengagement, the fatigue, the detachment, the numbness, that is more what we're looking at when we're talking about burnout. And we actually see in the literature, we see physical changes, digestive issues, heart issues, weakened immune systems when people are struggling with burnout. It's bad, right? Like that all bad. It also reduces productivity. So if you are
Mhm.
in the zone of going, is it? No, it's just a bad day, month, year, to decade. One of the things I encourage you to think about is how's your productivity?
Mhm.
Are you getting done the same level with which you used to? And this isn't just healthy aging, right? Like as we age, if we've been a social worker for 50 years, you're not going to remember things the same way. You're not going to have the same level of productivity. Like aging bodies are aging bodies. We love them. Thank God they exist. But that's not what we're talking about. It's like if from year to year, from quarter to quarter, from week to week, some weeks I'm good and the other weeks I just nosedive. I can't do those notes to save my life. Then maybe we're hitting this burnout flavor that isn't associated with just like kind of stress. So, and it's dangerous, not only for you as a person feeling it, but the business will suffer, the clients will suffer, the money suffers. All of that is the result of burnout, but isn't so much the result of just stress in and of itself.
Yeah. And I don't know that we always take the time to think about whether, we look back and we can say, oh yeah, this has been going on a long time. But when it's happening, I don't know that we think about, oh, this has been going on a long time until we're really forced to take that.
Yes. I I think, when I talk about the scented candles and yoga, I give it a hard time. Exercise is wildly helpful. Smelling something delicious is wildly helpful. It's not going to counteract burnout.
Yeah.
And
And
one
I
of
think those things, at least for me, are what I call self-care, which is kind of what I was
totally
going on before. But I also go one step further. What's your soul care like?
love
What's
that.
feeding your soul so
Yes.
that you can what's going to give you more energy, rejuvenate you, and make you more able to handle those things that come up? Because people can read a book or watch TV and check out for an hour or 2 hours, and that's great. But when it's like a benzo, it puts a pin in it for the time you're doing it. But as soon as it wears off, you still have the problem. And so when you think about soul care is what feeds your soul and gives you more of that peace to do that.
Yes.
Do more and to increase your capacity.
Yes.
And part of it is, do you need a different job? Is the job not feeding your soul, right? Mm-hmm. I know for me, when I worked at community mental health, it was sucking my soul dry is what I always would come home. And I just felt like I couldn't manage it. I lasted 2 years. I was like, I cannot do this.
Yes.
And it took a good year of me in my private practice before I kind of came out of that. It wasn't even really depression per se. It was just this funk kind of.
Exactly.
And it took like a year to get out of it before I was like, okay, the ceiling's not going to fall down on my private practice. All this is not going to happen. And I don't think we realize the damage long term that this does to us when we're stuck in these jobs that suck us dry.
Yes. And in social work, there's a few things. This is even an old statistic. It was from 2019. There was an article that estimated that in America, due to burnout, we lose something like $300 billion a year in lost productivity and people being like healthcare costs and people not being able to return to work. And I think that that's one of the things that, again, these like busting these myths around burnout kills me. Most people feel like it's them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no one else feeling it the way you're feeling it. It's just you in it. You can't bring a friend down your burnout journey with you. They may not be burned out about the same things that you're burned out or in the same way that you're burned out. So it is terribly personal. No one else is feeling this badness. It's just you and you who are going through this. But it is not because of you. It isn't because you couldn't hang. It isn't because you just needed to be better, do more, have better boundaries, whatever else. Oh, boundaries is a whole other thing. When we talk about burnout, I think that most people, when they tell their burnout story, they say a lot of I's.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this. I couldn't swing community mental health. I just couldn't be everywhere at once. It's very I focused. And one of my jobs on this planet is to start holding businesses accountable for the things that they do to us. Yes, you burned out from community mental health, but was it about you? Did you do something wrong? Could you have been possibly in 100 places at once at any given time? No, it was unsustainable. It wasn't a practice that a human can do. And when I talk to clients and supervisees about this, one of the things that I just have them visualize, did you see this video of this robot that was moving boxes? And he was at some kind of conference. They're we got this humanoid looking robot to do this work. And he's chugging, he's moving these boxes. And after 5 minutes, he collapses. It's not a human, it's a robot. But even something programmed to do monotonous, laborious garbage can't and won't. It took it 15 minutes to collapse. And that it wasn't a structural problem. It was in its code. It couldn't handle it. So I tell my folks, I'm give yourself some grace for not being able to work in an unsustainable environment. You did burn out, but it wasn't your fault. And what if it's possible, think about what that organization could have done. Not would have. I didn't say would, because we know that many of them won't. But what could they have done to make it tenable for you to keep going? What would that have looked like?
Well, and they make it, you feel like it's your fault too.
Sure do.
When I worked at community mental health, they were running on the medical model too. And so, I worked 10-hour days and I would have 10 45-minute appointments and 6 or 7 15-minute appointments. And I got a half-hour lunch. And they wanted you to book those, all of them full. That was their goal. They wanted you to do that. And I'm it was run, our department was run, behavioral health was run by an occupational therapist, didn't know behavioral health, didn't know how I was doing. I remember that's how I actually got trained on EMDRs. He's well, this is a short-term therapy, and it's not, but I got free training on EMDR for it. So there's a perk on that. But I was just like, as soon as my contract was ended, I have to go. I cannot stay here, no matter what the
Yes.
tuition reimbursement was, because I was like, this going to destroy me mentally if I
Yes.
stay there, because they weren't listening to the behavioral health people, and they
Yes.
wanted to keep doing it how they wanted to do it that made them the most money.
Yes. It's about follow the money, right? And in what I've seen for the most part is those are the organizations that do those. If you stay, we'll pay for your supervision if you work for us 2 years after. We'll pay for
Or
a
your school.
tuition reimbursement. Yes. And I always, it's kind of it's a red flag for me when I look for jobs or when my supervisees look for jobs. If I see that in the benefits, I'm like, no, like,
And
it's
I
going to
do
be
offer
bad.
the free supervision, but I offer free supervision because I think it's ridiculously expensive and
Yes.
unfair, and I think people should be allowed to have good supervision and not pay for it. And so that's a perk that I do offer my people. However,
Yes.
there's no tuition reimbursement. There's no, hey, you have to stay for 2 years. And they have the option of going somewhere else. If they want to utilize me, they can, but they don't have to.
Totally. And I think this is such a like organization, like agency issue. Group practices and private practices that offer these things are just kind and lovely. And it's these big conglomerates and, these large entities that do this kind of thing that I'm like, oof. If they use the word family, we're a family here. And if they do these kinds of benefits, I always go, I don't know. If you have to talk your people into staying, if you kind of have to force their hand, maybe you have a problem and you're not addressing it. And that like idea of what would it be like if they did handle, if they admitted, hey, we've really created a situation here in which people are not happy, they're not their best selves, they're not well, and here's the things that we plan to do. It kind of breaks my heart, but I feel like we were getting flavors of that during the pandemic. There were a bunch of companies where everyone entered the gig economy and were like, I'm going to sell shirts on Etsy instead of going into work or whatever. That some of these companies got really scared and they started actually thinking about how are we going to take care of our folks? And I was like, maybe, just maybe, the world of work is changing and it's realizing that like the employee is what matters. I think maybe for some reason I have Richard Branson in my head, but maybe that's the wrong guy. There's a very famous CEO that said, when you have healthy and happy employees, you will have healthy and happy clients. And I think that that's a thing. I heard it at the VA, maybe not in these words, but like, you don't matter. The veteran does. And I agree that we're all here because of the veterans, but that doesn't mean that my happiness and well being isn't a concern. And I will promise you, when I'm happy, healthy, and well, I'm a workaholic on my best day. I am going above and beyond. It's like my natural setting is a little more than average. But when I'm not well, it's not good. And the clients aren't having a good time because I am not like those three components, right? I don't think that what I'm doing matters here. I don't have any emotional connection to it at all. And I'm cynical and bitter. And I maybe say things like, come on in. I know it's 5 minutes late, but the last person wouldn't leave. Like I don't want to be that person. I don't think any of us want to be the burned out self. But what happens on the flip side of once you've been through it is that then you start questioning everything about yourself. Can I own this business? Can I be successful? Will the clients come? Will I ever get a job again in this kind of a corporate setting if I left this after only 2 years or after a year, after 9 months? All of those kind of creep in and kind of change our chemistry a little bit. So there is this like, you're amazing. What happened to you was not your fault. Please don't feel like you're broken or ineffectual or a bad therapist or a bad social worker or a bad human. This is just unsustainable. And when we start shifting that narrative a bit in our head of like, this happened to me rather than I did this, I think it helps heal that narrative in our own brains and helps us be more effective in the job that we're doing.
How do we prevent burnout? And can you in certain situations?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is early detection. It's like breast cancer. Do I think that a unsustainable workplace can, depending on who you are and what your thing is, one of the things I talk about is values. If you and I worked at the same place with the same number of clients, with the same acuity of clients, etc., you may be fine and I may burn out. Maybe what you want to do is you really love working, and as long as they give you more and more clients, you're happy as a clam. But I need reward. I need someone to tell me I'm doing a good job. I need those kind of words of affirmation to be like, yeah, you're great. Keep on at 'em, Tiger. And I never get that, but you get everything that you need. So I give businesses a hard time, but it may be there's just a difference in like, this is not how I best learn or grow or can exist in an organization. And I speak to a lot of managers and supervisors. So if you're a manager and a supervisor as a social worker, here's the laundry list of things to do. Check in with your folks. Have you ever burned out? What makes you feel unrewarded, unappreciated? What makes you feel rewarded and appreciated? What kinds of values do you have that makes someplace really happy and well to be at for you? And what doesn't? It may be different, unfortunately, with your different staff and your different supervisees, which is really hard. But if you're an individual who is listening to some of these things about burnout and going, oh no, I think it might be me. First, take a break. Take a break. Please, at least a week, although the research, which is not really realistic, research says that the person's nervous system doesn't actually fall back into the regular alignment until 14 days off. So if you can take 2 weeks, please do. But most of us, that's not really realistic. But take some time off. And when you're off, take care of yourself, those soul cares in whatever way that you can. Hang out with friends, have some good wine, do exercise every day, go for a walk with your pup, whatever it is that really feeds your soul, do it. When you are expected back at work and you get in your car or walk or however you're getting to work, do you feel like your soul is leaving your body going back into that place? And if so, you might need to be thinking of an exit strategy. And if not, it may just be stress. You may just have had a bad go of it. Utilize your supervisors, utilize your mentors, utilize the people that are at work and say, here's how I'm feeling. If we hide how we're doing, it grows and it gets darker. So if you can trust somebody to say, you know what, I don't think I'm my best self and I don't know what's going on with me. Can you start helping me think of ways to get more of what I need and know what you need? That is really the only thing that you can do. Share your story, get some validation that you're not alone, and then start making a change. We say it in therapy all the time, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. If you are burning out and you stay in the same situation, bad news, babe. Nothing will change.
And my guess is if people are listening to this and they are thinking, do I have it? Do I not? Probably odds are you probably do if you're questioning whether you have it or not.
Yeah.
And I think admitting it can be scary too, because it could mean a change in jobs. It could mean, uprooting your entire life into something different.
Yes. And I think about when we talk about that of change is hard. It may be just the thing that allows your life to like move in the direction of peace and joy and everything that you ever dreamed. Now, what I hope isn't the case is that you move way far out of the state of social work and you move into something else completely like real estate or, HR or whatever else. We need you. We need your expertise. We need your education. We need your please don't leave. Please try something else. And if you don't know what, call me. We can start figuring out those things that you did either in internship or, the things that, get a mentor who does something really cool and look at what they're doing. Try something else. If you have to leave social work, okay, I guess you can. But you worked really hard for what you have.
Yeah.
And I would hate for a bad work life to run you out of this profession because it is a noble one. And I think it is one of the most important in our country, in the world. Your job is to care for others, care for yourself, do some work, do some digging and see what you need.
Yeah. And what's the best way to stay in the field? If you're burnt out in what you're doing and you still want to do social work, if they don't call you or they don't have a business coach or they don't have a mentor, like what are some things that they can think about or kind of self-process to think about to get to the goal of what else can we do?
Yes. So my number one word for this place is diversification. Now, this works way less if you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Then the word is nap and quit. Maybe nap and quit. But if you can do something else, whether that is if you're working in community mental health, pick up a client or two, find a local private group practice, whatever, and say, hey, I want to see 2 clients a week. I want to keep it small, keep it little, see what else is out there, particularly if you've never done it before or if you've done it before and loved it, like in an internship. In a hospital, if you're doing mental health and you're getting burnt out on mental health, do a few hours in a hospital where all you have to do is discharge plan. Do something kind of the opposite of what is getting you bummed out. Teaching is a great thing to pick up as a side hustle. And yes, hopefully this will also increase your income. But the point is really to use different pieces of your brain. If I am stuck in this one role and I have no control over it and I'm just going through the motion, shaking it up and doing something wildly different is one of the best ways to gain back that passion and energy. And then as you're doing this, you never know what opportunities or what doors this is going to open in all of the different things that you can do. I'm also a really big proponent of social workers as coaches and as consultants. And I think most of us go, who, me? No, I'm just a social worker. The word just there as my no word. You have experience, you have knowledge. What would it look like if your main jam is EMDR or IFS or DBT? What would it look like if you just started offering speaking trainings once a month? DBT for beginners, DBT for more advanced folks, DBT in work with children versus work with adults versus work in bipolar versus work with borderline. Your knowledge can be an income source, which I think that we're taught as social workers that we aren't, that we don't have enough education or training to
I think
tell
we're also
others.
taught we shouldn't make money as a social worker in
Heck
general.
yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a thankless job. You will never make money at this. I remember hearing that in school so much.
Yes.
And I tell my employees and my supervisees, you can enjoy what you do and help people and make a living.
Sure can.
Because nothing creates, for me anyway, burnout or resentment faster than sitting across from a client who took a 2-week vacation to Hawaii or wherever, and you haven't been out of your town in years.
Yes. Yes.
And haven't had a vacation in years. I mean, that you just think, well, my clients are living better than I am, and I'm helping these people.
Yes. And I would go, that is such a good point about mirroring. The therapeutic relationship, in my opinion, and maybe they'll get some heat for this. I know sometimes our psychology friends, my business partner is a psychologist. I love her so much, but we disagree on some of these things. You're a human with needs. If you have to cough, if you have to drink water, if you have to step away because you just pooed your pants, happens. The stories are out there. You have to take care of you. And I think that our clients, particularly in the mental health world, seeing us be a human, aligning with that we have needs is better for the therapeutic relationship. It's better for them to see like, oh yeah, if something isn't going well, I have boundaries and we just crossed them. Let's talk about respect and dignity in the room because you said this slur or you got mad at me or you did whatever. This is a microcosm of the real world in the therapeutic space. So if I act like I don't need things like vacations or water or to use the bathroom or to eat, then my clients think that that's how they need to be too.
Well, it's
and
the
that
same
doesn't do anyone
idea
well.
of like when we watch our parents, like especially women, when we watch our mothers do all these things and they never complain, they just keep doing them and they handle it. And then it comes to us and we can't do it or we feel like we can't do it. We feel like we fail because, well, my mom could do it. Why can't I do it? And that kind of, that mentality goes into the therapy room, right? My therapist can do it. Why can't I do it? And when I go on vacations, I have very strict boundaries with my clients. will not answer emails. I will not answer text messages or phone calls or anything. They can call this one person in the office that's covering for me, whoever it is.
Love it.
They can call the office. They can do that. And it's interesting shift, because when I first started doing it, people were like, oh, really, you're taking a vacation? Now people are like, good for you. You're taking a vacation. And so it shifts kind of that conversation of like, you can prioritize yourself and be helpful. It's teaching them that you put your own oxygen mask on before you put somebody else's on, and wrapping back a little bit to that side hustle stuff. I remember somebody telling me once that therapists, social workers, anybody are fantastic at marketing. And because we know the human brain and we know how it works and we can appeal to people's psyches. One thing that I find, I have, you have side hustles, I have side hustles, is it feeds me in a different way than my practice.
Yes.
And because I think if I just had my practice, I would get burnout. And so I think that's why I've created these things, right? Is because then it makes it something fun you do and something else, but you're still helping people. You're still, showing up and doing something to better the world in a way, or your community. I do volunteer work with a cancer foundation. I do this rural social worker, right? I do my private practice. I do coaching. I am going to create a website for one of my employees who wants to go out on her own and, do some of those stuff. And I think that's another thing too. This is my little soapbox, is we can support women, specifically women, and still succeed. Like I have employees, and whether they're male or female, if they want to go out their own, I will be happy to help them. There's multiple spaces at the table and multiple things that if they leave, okay, somebody else will fill their spot. But we can support people and be there for people, and you can both succeed.
Yes.
And I think there's so much noise around that, especially with women, of like, nope, you need to push your way to the front because there's only a spot for you.
Yep. And I know we had a previous chat about supervision, but it to me, when we talk about side hustles, that's why supervision is so damn good for me anyway. Is this like I'm giving back, I'm making money, in some instances quite a good living. It's fun. It's like third hand emotional. It's their clients, they're not my clients. So I just kind of get to sit up here at this kind of 40,000-foot view and look and give advice and guidance and whatever. And when we talk about supervision, that's one of the things that I really encourage people to seriously look into, not only for the money and the feel goods, but also that it keeps you present in the the slang that the kids are using these days, but like new social workers, there's always new information, new modalities, new ways of doing, new literature. And if most of us don't have time to be digging into like, what are the changes, right? If you've been a therapist for 20 years, maybe all you know is CBT, and maybe you throw in some other things for fun, but that was the gold standard. Now things are shifting a little bit, and we're seeing some other things that are more useful or kind of exclusionary criteria for CBT. Are you remaining in it? And one of the best ways to do that is to have generally younger, but I do have some older folks too, but younger supervisees that just learned all of this stuff and kind of keep you fresh and with it. The hustle of doing multiple jobs and all of that using other sides of your brain, I think you get all of it in the supervision world of like you're building practices, you're helping them build their practice. So that gets you into this like money, economy, how to set things up, how to give back. You also get the like ethics and like staying up on laws and kind of engaged in your board in that kind of way. You also get this new, the new stuff coming up from literature or from wherever. It's just so good all the way around. And that, to me, I have a few men, they're still statistically for social workers quite low. We're looking at like maybe they're getting close to 20%, but you will be supervising the majority of women. And I love particularly working with women of color because, I want you to own your own business. I want you to be part of the very few percentage of women of color who own their own business and rock it. I want you to make money. I want you to be able to not only survive social work, but thrive in social work. I want you to take all of your education and experience and expand on it and grow from it rather than let it hold you back. That to me, like giving back to those communities is my heart's like passion. And I think supervision is just such a good way to do that.
Yeah, and when they're thriving in that field, the burnout is so much more rare.
Yes. Yes.
Because you're happy, you're excited, you have new projects all the time. I mean, I come up with all these things and I tell my clinical coordinator, oh, we should do this. Oh, we should do that.
Yes. Keeps you fresh.
It does.
Absolutely.
And it keeps things exciting. But like, I mean, I had a rough Wednesday this week, and Thursday was pretty rough too, because I spent half the day in a training, but, and everybody, wants you as soon as you get out of it. But it was 2 days, right? It wasn't like, oh, now I'm so wore out for the weekend, I just can't do anything.
Yes.
It's not like that. It's more like those were 2 bad days, but okay, here's the weekend.
Yes. And I think when you start to do some of these, you divest from just this single thing the role that I fill into I do a little bit of this, that, and the other thing. If you get tired of doing that thing, then it's not really no harm, no foul. You just pivot and do something else for a while. And then I think one day you'll look back and you'll go, look at all the things I've done and all the places I've been. I can work with anyone from any walk of life, no matter where they work, no matter how they work, because I have all of these experiences I'm bringing forward. And it makes you, an amazing trainer, an amazing speaker, an amazing CE provider, an amazing coach. It just expands on itself and exponentially grows your ability to do whatever it is that makes you happy. It's amazing.
Yeah. I started out before I was in college, left college, went to massage therapy school, and then came back. And I still use things from massage therapy school, whether it's at home or whether it's just knowledge of muscles and how things work, or if people are saying, because people could complain about their, their physical health and their muscles and stuff. And I can say, that's something maybe you should see a doctor for. But it's kind of like, oh, I just have this in my back pocket of like, I can do this. And
amazing.
I have people around me that are like, man, you took a really long time to get to this point. And I'm like, but I don't know that I would trade it for anything, because I think it made me the therapist I am, right? To be able to relate to all these different people, all the experiences we have in our life.
Yeah.
But when we are burnt out, all we can do is sit in those. And I think that's what's hard.
Yeah.
Is, if we don't know we're in burnout, how do we get out of it?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think sharing what you're going through with a partner, with a colleague, with a coworker, with a mentor, with maybe not your kids, maybe that's the only thing, share it. Share what you're going through and hear what other people have to say. Like, oh yeah, that's so interesting that you say that, because I have been seeing that you've been leaving later and later, and you don't want to, go out and go for a walk around the parking lot for lunch anymore. Are you okay? How can I help? Can I take anything off your plate? Like, I think sometimes social workers are the worst people to ask for help. And that is the thing. If you're going through this, it is very isolating. And sometimes we get in this zone of like, I don't want anyone else to like have to deal with my ugly or my, cynicism or my over itness. I'm just going to hide. I'm going to go home and I'm going to lock myself in my closet and like maybe I'm crying in there. Sharing this stuff, letting it out into the light is the way to heal it. If you leave it in the dark, it's like mushrooms. It's only going to grow. And if you're embarrassed or ashamed, just remember, like, you are not alone. This happens, like, especially when we talk about rural, especially for rural social workers, it's really interesting because there's this burnout is better statistically or much worse. And we can think about the reasons why that would be, right? If it's worse, it's because maybe I'm expected to do way more with less. I have limited resources. I have limited ability to get what I need or what my clients need. And the more is interesting. I love this, but like we're more community driven. We rely on people more. We have more resources in the like, I know that I can't do it alone. So I'm going to lean on all of these community folks or resources that we do have. So, it's one of those things that like, I promise you, if you're talking to another mental health clinician, they are going to have a story of their own about either burnout or high levels of stress, chronic stress, or, leaving an organization. I don't think any of us are immune to this. And I don't know anyone who hasn't felt like this at some point. And it's kind of like that trial by fire thing we were talking about. Most folks feel it quite early on, unfortunately. And I would love to see a world where we didn't make our youngest and newest be in the hardest and the most unsustainable jobs, because then we're at risk of losing them. What if we like just ease them into social work rather than like hit them in the face with a fire hose? But
Well, I think
cut it
also with
out.
rural, if you're truly part of that community and you truly embrace that and you want to be a part of it, one, it reduces burnout because people will see and they will say, hey, you don't seem like yourself, because the boundaries are different in rural, right? If somebody sees
Yes.
something, they're going to call you out on it and say, I see something different here. What's going on?
Yeah.
And you don't have that in urban areas. I think in urban areas, people tend to keep to themselves so much that you don't see it. But on the flip side, if you're in a rural community and you're not embracing that, then there's nobody else to hold you accountable, nobody to see it. And so then you get burnout and then you leave. And it could have been this great, beautiful thing, because
Yes.
it is a very rewarding population to serve. And it's one that's so underserved.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, but if we can embrace that community and come into that community, I think it does help. And people don't like the lack of anonymity around that. And they think that's going to hurt them professionally and mentally. And I don't feel like personally it does. I think it can just make it better.
Yeah. And to me, it's funny because I always think about those are the people who aren't from this. Those are, you hear this in ethics training all the time, like you're a rural social worker and you have this dual relationship and how would you handle it, whatever. And it's so funny to me because I'm like, tell me you've never spent time in a rural community. It's so easy because in rural communities, how we interact with people is much more open. We know things about people. We know how to keep secrets and to not, go running around town. You're not going to make any friends if you're running around a small town telling everybody's business. You're not going to be effective as a human, much less a therapist or a mental health provider. So to me, those are the superpowers, is the connections, is the ability to form relationships, is your history here. Even if you didn't grow up in this place, if you grew up like this, it's almost second skin. You know how to do this. You know how to do dual relationships because your teacher was also your coach, was also your pastor, was also your all of these things.
Yeah.
So I think the people that are like most concerned with like, oh, I just want to be this community therapist and they can't see me in any other role are the outsiders. And not that you can't grow into it and be successful, but the people who've done this their whole lives, who come from this, they're old hats at this. They know how to do that in these communities.
Well, and I think if you can be more open and you can embrace those communities, you're a better therapist too. If you're standoffish and you don't want to embrace the community, you're not going to be as effective. I've said this in previous podcast episodes, is people want to know you. They want to know your people. They want to know how you function. And that doesn't mean you have to tell them where you live and you have to tell them all these things, but it does mean you need to share a little bit about yourself.
Yes.
There's a way to do that and maintain good boundaries, and that it's a fine line. Yes. But there is a way to do that.
Yes. And going back to that, I'm human too. Like if I'm expecting you to walk into this room and tell me the hardest things that you've ever been through, but you don't get to know who I am in any way, I'm not going to be I haven't proven myself safe to contain and hold their crap. And that is dangerous, in my opinion. I don't want my clients to tell their stories, the hardest things that have ever happened to them, to any old Joe on the street. I want them to do it appropriately when people have proven that they're safe, when they're trusted. Otherwise, you're just like, you're spewing your stuff on people who aren't able to hold it for you. And that's not going to work out for anyone. So why would I expect them to give me everything they got when they don't know me from Adam?
Do you feel like use of self reduces the risk of burnout?
Yes, I do, because with our colleagues, with our bosses, with our clients, very often they will see the changes in you when you're not doing well before you do. Because how often are we looking at ourselves in the mirror and realizing what we're projecting out onto whoever we're talking to? The times in my life and very many people that I know, like, yeah, this person said this thing today and I had no idea, right? Like their especially when we let them in and they get to know us and they know our proclivities and our weirdness and our beautiful, like, individual uniqueness, they're much more likely to notice when something is off than when you will. So these questions about, is it burnout? You know, it's not appropriate to ask your clients like, oh, do you think I'm burning out? But like, what are your colleagues? What would your boss say? What would your manager say? And if you don't have anyone around you, ask a partner, ask a friend, I'm feeling some kind of way. Do you see it? Do you like, are you picking up on it from your end? And, 9 times out of 10, if you're going through something this significant, they're going to be like, oh, thank God. I've been wanting to tell you something for weeks and I just haven't had the right, known what to say or whatever. Your people will see it, but only when you're showing your humanness.
Yeah. I know I mentioned this on the other episode we did, and I think I'm probably going to air these together so that people can get them. But supervision is one of the biggest things that can help prevent burnout.
Yeah.
And like you said in the previous episode, that you are licensed in several states to provide supervision. If somebody's looking for supervision or business coaching, how do they reach you?
Yeah. So you can find me, Ashley Stevens, with a PH. I am one half of the Crane and the Bull, Crane as in CRANE. If you Google image that, it is literally a crane picking up a bull. That is not what we're doing here. But thecraneandthebull.com is our website. You can find anything, organizations. If you're a leader in an organization and you want to know how to prevent your people from burning out, we do a lot of work on trainings and those kinds of things for people who do have a little bit more of that leadership. But if you're just an individual and you're wanting to learn more about how to prevent burnout, how to overcome burnout, how to really pivot and start doing other things that feed your soul, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to help.
Thank you so much. If there are stories or issues that you face in your practice and you would like me to discuss those on this podcast, please send me a message at theruralsocialworker@gmail.com, and I will be happy to take a look. One of the goals of this podcast is storytelling, and I believe that to be impactful, you need context, and that is where stories come in. They give us something to work with and something to build on. I also believe that stories from multiple different rural communities will offer more information and provide more support to rural social workers everywhere. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this episode and will subscribe for more. Thank you for joining me for another insightful episode of The Rural Social Worker. If you've enjoyed our exploration into the vital work of social work in rural communities, be sure to subscribe, share, and connect with me on social media. Your support helps me continue my mission of closing the gaps and fostering resilience in the places that often go unnoticed. Remember, this podcast is not a substitute for official supervision in your professional journey. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and keep making a difference in rural communities.